Hello and welcome back to Revenge Handler. I'm Mike, and I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today I have a story for you from the pros. I know you're going to enjoy it. Let's go ahead and jump right in. This story comes to us from Reddit, and I have to warn you, the moment this man's wife used that threat one time too many, he did not argue. He did not beg. He simply picked up the phone and called a locksmith. After you hear this one, I want you to drop a rating in the comments. Out of 10, how good is this revenge? Let's see what everyone thinks. If you're new here, hit subscribe. This channel is built for people who believe that karma always finds its way. And save this channel. Bookmark it, because when a betrayal comes to you, and it will, you'll want to know exactly how to handle it. That's what we're here for. She said it at his mother's dinner table. Silverware still in hand, wine half drunk, his whole family watching. If you don't drop this right now, I am done. I mean it this time. And he sat there, the way he always sat there, jaw tight, quiet, swallowing whatever he had been about to say. And everyone at that table pretended they hadn't heard it, because they had all heard it before, many, many times. And that moment is where this story really begins. Not at the betrayal, not at the divorce filing, not at the locksmith arriving on a Tuesday afternoon with a bag of new cylinders. It begins at that dinner table, because that was the night he started counting. She said it for the first time 6 months into the marriage. They were arguing about something genuinely trivial, a billing error whose turn it was to handle it. And she looked at him across the kitchen and said, "Keep it up and I'll leave." He laughed it off. Newlywed tension. Every couple goes through it. He apologized. She calmed down. They moved on. He filed it away as a bad moment and nothing more. She said it the second time about a year later. They disagreed about Christmas, her family or his. She wanted hers. He wanted to split the time, which is a kind of perfectly reasonable compromise that should not require negotiation. She said, "If you make this into a fight, I am done with this marriage." He backed down. They spent Christmas at her mother's house. He sat there and smiled and refilled the wine glasses and told himself relationships were about compromise, that he was being the bigger person, that choosing peace was choosing strength. What he was actually doing, though he would not understand this for another 3 years, was teaching her exactly what that threat could do, and she was a fast learner. The third time came when he was offered promotion. Travel required, more money, significant step forward, everything they had talked about building toward. She said, "Take that job and see what happens to us." He took a week. He thought about it. He turned it down. He told himself it was about priorities. He told himself he was choosing his marriage over his career, and that said something good about him. It did not say something good about him. It said something very specific about what she had learned she could do to him, and the cost it would take years to calculate. The pattern became invisible to him, the way patterns always do when you live inside them. Every significant disagreement ended the same way. Every time he actually held his ground on something that mattered, out came the nuclear option, the marriage held hostage. And every single time, he folded, because he loved her, because he believed in the marriage, because somewhere in those early years, the fear of losing her had quietly become the most powerful thing in his life, and she had located that fear long before he had. His friends noticed first. After she said something like that in front of them, someone would say quietly, "That's not okay, man." He would defend her. He would explain. He would reframe. He had become very skilled at reframing. He had been practicing it for years without knowing that's what he was doing. And here's the part that makes the whole thing complicated, because it always is. The marriage had genuine warmth in it when things were going well. They had built a real life together. A house, a proper house with a yard they had spent 2 summers making into something they were proud of. They had shared friends, shared rituals, a joint account they fed every month toward a future they both said they wanted. He had built most of the financial structure. She handled the social architecture, the plans, the dinners, the family maintenance on both sides. They had roles. They had a rhythm. From the outside, it looked like a solid marriage. From the inside, it had a crack running through the foundation, and it was getting wider every time that lever got pulled. Then came the dinner. November, his mother's house. His sister, her husband, both of his parents. His wife sat across from him at the table. They had been in a low-grade argument for 3 days about money, specifically about a significant purchase he had put on hold because the timing wasn't right. She wanted it done. He had laid out his reasons calmly. She had not appreciated that. And there, at the table, with his mother in the kitchen and his father mid-sentence, she looked at him and said it. Cool. Even. Completely unmistakable. If you don't drop this right now, I am done. I mean it this time. The table went silent. His sister looked at her plate. His brother-in-law picked up his glass. His father cleared his throat. He said nothing. He smiled. He changed the subject. The evening continued, but something in him did not continue. Something stopped. Right there at that table, with his family watching and pretending not to watch, something went completely still. Not angry, not devastated. Still, he drove home that night with her beside him, quiet. She seemed satisfied she had won. He let her think that. He came inside. He poured a glass of water. He sat in the kitchen for a long time after she went to bed, and he started counting, going back through it, not with bitterness, not yet, but with the slow, sober arithmetic of a man who has finally decided to look at something he has been refusing to see. He counted 7 times in the last 12 months alone. 7 times a marriage had been placed on the table as the price of his compliance. He went to bed. He did not sleep. Rate this one so far in the comments, out of 10. I want to see your number before we go any further. The next morning she was fine. Bright, even. She made coffee. She asked what he wanted for dinner. She moved through the kitchen like the previous night had never happened. And that was the thing. She had already moved past it, because for her, it was already done. The thread had worked. The argument was shelved. Life resumed its normal configuration. What she did not know was that she had just handed him the only piece of information he needed. She did not mean it. She had never meant it. The threat was not a threat. It was a lever. She had no intention of leaving. No intention of following through on any of it. The weapon only worked because he had believed in it. And sitting in that kitchen, watching her pour his coffee and talk about dinner, he understood something so clearly it was almost funny. If she was not going to leave, then nothing was stopping him from calling her bluff. He just needed to be ready when she pulled the lever again. He did not change anything immediately. He did not pick a fight. He did not confront her. He was patient. He was, for the first time in years, genuinely calm because he had made a decision, and the decision had lifted all the weight off. He was no longer managing her emotions. He was no longer inside the game of avoidance and appeasement. He was waiting, and while he waited, he started doing some quiet, practical things. He booked a consultation with a family lawyer, not to file anything, just to understand where he stood, what the house meant, what joint accounts meant, what his options looked like. The lawyer walked him through it. He left with a notepad full of information he had never had before. He moved his personal savings, a separate account he had maintained since before the marriage, into a new account she had no visibility into, his money, but he wanted it separated and accessible. He called a locksmith, not to book anything, just to ask some questions. How long does a lock change take? What does it cost? What does the process look like? He kept a number. He came home every evening and was pleasant and present and gave her no reason to suspect anything had changed. She noticed nothing. Why would she? As far as she was concerned, the dinner had ended the way all the dinners ended. She had set terms. He had accepted them. The argument was dead. Life had resumed. She had won again. She pulled the lever 6 weeks later. They were in the living room on a Saturday afternoon. He had brought up the promotion again. A new version of the opportunity had come through, even better this time. He raised it carefully. He laid out the facts. She went cold immediately. He kept talking. She cut him off. I am not doing this with you. You want to take that job, you can take a loan. He looked at her. Steady. He said, okay. She waited for him to walk it back. He didn't move. She said it slower, more precisely. I mean it. If you take that job, I want a divorce. He said, all right. She stared at him. Something crossed her face. Not quite fear, but the first tremor of it. Are you serious right now? He said, I think you should go stay at your sister's tonight. Take a few days. We both need some space to think. She laughed, short and disbelieving. You're not serious. He said, I'll help you pack some things. Subscribe right now if you believe that what's coming next was completely, entirely deserved. Hit subscribe. Don't miss a single one of these. She did not pack anything. She told him he was being ridiculous, that he was overreacting, that he was only doing this to punish her. She cycled through every version of a script she had never had to use before. Because she had never needed one, he had always retreated, and she had no contingency for a version of him that didn't. He listened to all of it. He was not cold. He was not cruel. He simply was not available for the argument she was trying to have. He said, calmly, I think some space would be good for both of us. I'll call you tomorrow. She left, furious, absolutely certain that he would call within the hour, apologize, fold the same way he always folded, and everything would reset. He waited until her car turned off the street. Then he picked up his phone and called the locksmith. The locksmith arrived in under 90 minutes. Front door, back door, side gate, every entry point to the house that was, legally and financially, primarily his name on the mortgage, his deposit, his payments for the better part of 5 years. New cylinders throughout. 3 sets of keys. 1 for him. 2 in a kitchen drawer. He packed 2 bags. Carefully, and without any anger at all. Clothes for a week. Her laptop. Chargers. Toiletries. The things she would actually need. He stacked them neatly on the porch and went back inside. He sent her 1 text. I took you at your word. The locks are changed. Your things are on the porch. Call me when you're ready to have a real conversation. He made dinner. He watched television. He went to bed. His phone rang at 9:17 p.m. He did not answer. It rang 4 more times over the next hour. He did not answer. At 11:40 p.m., a text arrived. You are going to regret this. He read it, put the phone face down on the nightstand. He slept better than he had in years. Drop your rating right now. Out of 10. How clean was this? I want to see the number. The next 48 hours were, by his account, the most surreal of his life. She called. Her sister called. Her mother called twice. His own mother called, concerned. He answered that one. He was brief. He said the marriage had serious issues that needed addressing, and he was taking time to think clearly. His mother asked if he was sure. He said yes. His lawyer had told him something during that first consultation that had stayed with him. She said, the person who acts first often controls the narrative, but the person who acts calmly always controls the outcome. He had months of calm and reserve. He spent them wisely. His wife returned to the house on day 3. She knocked. He answered. She had been crying, visibly, genuinely. She said she wanted to talk. He said he did too. He let her in. They sat at the kitchen table. The same table where he had backed down 100 times. She said she was sorry. She said she knew she had a pattern. She said she did not actually want a divorce. She said she loved him. He believed all of it. He believed she was sorry. He believed she meant every word in that moment. He also knew that sorry was not the same as changed. He said that to her. Quietly, without cruelty. He said, I believe you're sorry. What I don't know is whether you're capable of not doing it again. And I am not willing to find out the hard way. She asked what that meant for the marriage. He told her he had already consulted a lawyer, that there were papers drafted, that the decision about what happened next was genuinely hers, but that if she chose to stay, it would be on the understanding that the threat was permanently retired, and that if it ever came out of her mouth again, she would come home to locked doors and no second conversation. She agreed. Couples counseling weekly, non-negotiable. A written framework she signed, and he kept a copy of the things she had once said she didn't believe in, now sitting across from her as the only road that still existed. Save this channel. Not for today. For the day someone hands you a reason to need it. Consider it your insurance policy. Add it to your bookmarks right now. He took the promotion. She attended every session. The first 3 were defensive. She spent most of each one explaining herself, and the therapist, to her credit, did not let her. The 4th session was the first one where she actually listened. The 5th was the first one where she said something that stopped her mid-breath. She said she had watched her mother do the exact same thing for her entire childhood. The threat as a tool. The relationship as a weapon. She had absorbed it so completely she had never once examined it. She had not understood until the night she came home to locked doors and her bag stacked on a porch. What had actually cost him? What it had cost him? He did not forgive her easily. That matters. This is not a soft story. This is a story about a man who got pushed one time too many and decided, finally, clearly, that his peace was worth more than his fear of losing her. He did not change those locks to punish her. He did it because he had called her bluff. And in doing so, he had accidentally discovered which version of the marriage was still capable of surviving. She chose to do the work. He chose to let her. The locks, for the record, stayed changed. He never gave her a key to the new ones. She asked about it once, a few months in, careful about how she worded it. He said, "You can always stay at your sister's if you ever feel like you need some space." She looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded. She never mentioned the keys again. Karma does not always come in fire. Sometimes it comes very quietly. In a locksmith's visit on a Tuesday afternoon. In 2 bags packed carefully and without malice and left on a porch. In a man who finally, after years of folding, looked at the lever she was pulling and decided he was done being the one who moved. Drop your score in the comments. Out of 10, no explanation needed. Just a number. And if you know someone who's been living inside a pattern they can't quite name yet, send them this one. Because sometimes the story that helps you see it isn't your own. Subscribe if you haven't. Save this channel. Because when your moment comes, and it will come, you will already know exactly where to go.